I was not married. We were still very naive to a certain degree, believe me. But the idea of being over there was kind of exciting for us. The idea of living on a ship was also kind of exciting. None of us had ever lived on a ship before. It wasn't something that I was even thinking of when I wrote down the Vietnam. It was just I was so overwhelmed with everything coming in from Vietnam. That was what was on my mind. But anyways, we reported to the USS Sanctuary out in Mare Island in California, and then took it on a month-long cruise over to Da Nang. There were 29 doctors, 28 nurses, and a myriad of corpsmen that came, along with the ship's company. The interesting part of a hospital ship is they have two totally separate companies. One is the ship's company, and one is the hospital company. So we had two commanding officers. At that time, Captain Collingwood was the commanding officer of the ship's company, and Duffner was the commanding officer of the hospital company. When we were taking that month-long trip over there, we practiced our manual patient handling stations and triage skills the whole way over. It truly doesn't prepare you for what you're going to face. I happened to work in the triage area, which was right off the deck where the helicopters brought the patients. So that's where I happened to be during that. The triage area is the first room that the patients come in, and what we are doing there is looking at them and see where they should go. Should they go to the ICU? Should they go to the OR? Should they go to orthopedic? Should they go to there? Or in some cases, and this did happen during TED, they had to go to a room to await help. So that's pretty much what the triage. What we did was we cut off their clothes, take out, most of the ammunition was taken out off them up on the deck. But sometimes we would find that. We got into Da Nang on April the 10th, probably around 1 or 2 o'clock. Within the hour, we had 10 patients, all extremely bad burns from a landmine explosion, and they all ended up in ICU. And an interesting story with that is that, I don't know if you've ever seen a burn patient, but the intense pain that they experience is awful. So it was a nightmare for the nurses working. I was not working in ICU that day. And it took them hours to give them enough pain reliever to help them alleviate some of their intense pain and to calm them down and to get things settled. And they did. Just before 8 o'clock, they got them settled, and everybody could take a sigh of relief when the ship's bell rang. Now, I don't know if you know, but ship's bells on hospitals ring every 4 hours. That was the last time we heard a bell that year, because the doctor took himself out of the ICU, up into the commanding officer's quarters, and got those bells stopped. I remember that so well. That was quite an initiation. I think within 24 hours, we had something like 130 odd patients. I mean, they just came. All by helicopter, all from the field. Well, it did vary. If you only got 2 or 3 at a time, it wasn't so bad. You get 10 or 12, then there's no question it was more difficult. But you are so focused. You are so focused on what you're doing, you're not even aware of what you're doing. That's how I looked at it, anyways. And then the patients some of them were intensive. They needed to go intensive care. Some went to the OR. Some were just not that badly wounded, so they might have stayed with us for a few days and then went back to the field. Some stayed and for a few days and then were medevaced to the States. Went to Tokyo and some other places for further treatment, in particular burn patients. And some didn't make it. Helicopter pilots brought them because they were either involved in some kind of a battle that they were involved in. The children were all there. We also had adults too. But we had some severely burned children, severely injured children, severely wounded. They were all brought to us by the helicopter pilot. And usually they were brought to us with other servicemen who had been with these children when all this happened. One child in particular, I can't even remember his name, Phi, he was brought to us from the Montagnard country by the Green Berets. And I have a distinct memory of this because I came down the stairs to go to work, so I must have been working the afternoon shift, when I saw this child. And I had to turn around and go back up. And I've seen a lot, and up until that time I'd seen a lot, but this child was the worst I'd ever seen. Anyways, I turned around and came back down and got my wits about me. And that child became the favorite child on the ship. He was with us for a long time. The Green Berets brought him because he evidently assisted them in whatever they were doing in the Montagnard country. And his face was his face that was so badly. But the child had a fabulous attitude, had a great sense of humor. These kids didn't speak our language. We didn't speak their language, but you could communicate. And he did become a favorite of everybody. That included the ship's company.